Welcome to Speedrunner Showcase, the show that runs on coffee and marbles. Today we have a special guest, which is WhiskyMancer. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi. So I go by the online name WhiskyMancer. I am from Belgium. I've been speedrunning marbles for, I believe, it should be somewhere around a year now. Marble It Up has been my first ever marble game, so it's been an interesting adventure. Starting this thing that I normally never would have done, and I honestly didn't think I would get to the point where I have. But I'm glad I did. It's been an amazing journey going through this. It's been amazing starting a stream channel
Yep.
and getting to know a lot of people, like getting deep into a unique community that I never would have interacted with otherwise, and meeting a lot of people that I've really come to know and love. And I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have made the Big Sip 40.
Perfect. Well, yeah, we'll hear lots of stories about those things as we get into the run. But as always, let's get started. Learn to roll as always, and we're going.
The fun thing about learning to roll is that every time I start my speedrun, I click the race button. This is something that I've come to import from Kitty, Space Kitty.
Yep.
And the reason for that is because I use the lineup that Kitty taught me to get the clean bounce pattern into the goal,
Right.
and I use the race timer to line up with that.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, like you said, you've been speedrunning this game for a little while now, and you got into this because of Space Kitty, who is your sister-in-law.
Yes, indeed. I normally never would have played a game like this, but I'm really happy I ended up discovering this game through her. It's been really amazing. And the general idea was just that she was talking about it a lot, and like she was talking about starting a stream and speedrunning this, and like how fun it's been. And I was like, you know what, I want to try too. It's like she really nailed on me to try it, and I was like, nah, I don't know if this is a game for me. I'm not really a speedrunner type. I prefer just watching them. But then eventually I started doing it. I did a casual playthrough first. I
Right.
did that live on stream where I didn't know any of the levels and all that. And then I ended up doing my first day of speedrunning, which was originally meant to be like just a one-time thing where I would just see where I could get, and
Mm-hmm.
I ended up doing 4 back-to-back PB speedruns that day, ending with a 48:08 on that day. And from there on, it's been a slow, gradual increase. But I also don't play quite nearly as
Right.
much as he does, so it's been a bit slow on my part, I feel like.
Yeah, you've made a gradual, steady progression, and you've gotten to the point now where you're kind of past that uh, big sub 40 barrier, which is a big deal for any player. And yeah, how are you feeling on the day when you did this run?
It was a long day. I
I know the
streamed
answer to this question already,
twice.
but I'm
I
asking.
I streamed twice that day. So I started the day. I believe I did like 2 completed runs
Yep.
in the afternoon. I had a lot of struggles with chapter 3. I was generally kind of getting frustrated during the early part, so I took a bit of a break. I had my dinner, and then a while later I came back. I did one run. I have absolutely no recollection of that one run. And then yeah, we got a bit in a heated discussion in my in my channel.
And you just
And so I was
nailed this
yeah,
one
I
out.
was yeah, I was really highly annoyed. Like we had a bit of a discussion.
Yep.
Something was said that touched on something that I personally take pride in. Personally, something that for me has been very important in my personality going into my career and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was just really pissed off, and I came into this run really just with points to prove, and I would say the point was proven. I
And the
feel
point
like
the point was proven. Yeah. It's funny. They happen. PBs can happen sometimes when you're in a state of mind that you wouldn't expect. I know I had one really grouchy PB one time that, uh, when I was watching it back over, I was like, oh man, I can't believe that I was I was playing so well while being so annoyed with the world. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of uh, a run that you pulled out of in a moment you were frustrated, but it was your best run ever.
I mean, yeah, but it's a thing that is quite typical of me when I get angry or frustrated. I will tend to vent that out in rather unique ways.
Yep.
And in this case, it was just like, I'm pissed. I'm just gonna do this run, and I'm going to focus entirely on this run. And I mean, because I wasn't talking with Chad, I didn't have my cam on, so there were no distractions. It was just me, my anger, and the marble rolling through space.
Yeah.
And yeah, it
Uh,
just worked.
it works. So this is my first time actually watching this run. I was in your chat at the
Ooh.
time, but of course I wasn't watching. I was just listening. So nothing too like eventful has happened so far, but you're 16 seconds ahead. Is this like an unusually good early game for you, or is this kind of more like what you would hope for or what you would expect?
I mean, I would always hope for this because I haven't had any like failures yet.
Right.
The reason this is so far ahead is mainly because I had a death on up the wall, I believe, in my PB.
Got it.
So that saved like 10 seconds, and the overall movement in the early game in my PB, like not even like with big mistakes, but like aside from the death on up the wall, the overall movement was a bit more sloppy
Mhm.
than it was here. So we just to make up like little bits of time on most levels.
And your former PB was quite a while ago. It wasn't a recent PB that you beat to set
No,
this new one.
4113 was, I believe it was 4 months old, I believe. So it was about
Yeah.
time that
Yeah,
we had another PB. But a lot happened in between those months. I've had
sure.
times where I didn't stream, and
Yeah, you've been busy with life and stuff like that, but you still have progressed as a player to the point where you were able to land out this goal that you had been trying to reach for a long time.
yeah, it's been. I mean, at first I wasn't really focused on the sub 40. I felt like it was gonna be a thing that happened when it happened, but then Kitty got the sub 40, and then I was like, oh well, okay, now I have to do it too. And so then I really started getting more hooked, and I noticed that I got a lot more attached to the runs that I did, and I got frustrated a lot more with like mistakes and stuff than I usually would, because at that point I was in it to win it, which
Right.
I would just do this because it's fun and
Mm-hmm.
to chill with chat, but I was really in it to win it at that point, and it was noticeable in the streams leading up to
Oh,
this. Oh, there's the
that
first step.
yeah, that looks like the first
Yeah.
major issue of this run, and it was very clean. You were going into chapter 3 of like a 640 or something, or 645, which is a very solid start. But that
Yeah.
unfortunate accidental edge hit is gonna set you
Sugar Rush
back
is one
here.
of those levels that I've always done by feel, which is something that I'm typically not very good at. I'm typically more of a tactical, analytical person. I'll watch a run and I'll see where are the jumps, where are the bounces, how long do you roll for before you jump, all
You're
that
very
kind
you're
of stuff.
very
Like typically,
methodical.
yeah, yeah, I'm very methodical, very analytical of the things that I do.
Yep.
So doing the levels that take like a gut feeling or like intuition, or the ones that I'm typically worse at, and Sugar Rush is definitely one of those. This level is absolutely one of those.
It is, but you're gonna save time here.
Yes, because my PB had a like 50-ish second time loss on this level alone. I do believe, however, that I'm gonna lose time on Speedball and quite an amount as well. I believe I have a death here,
It's been
if
a
I'm
little
not
while, but
mistaken.
you said you did watch this run over after you initially had landed it.
There it is, there it is, there it is. That's the death on Speedball. Right at the end too. So a lot of the time saved from elevator X, and like
Yeah.
at this point I was already getting quite frustrated because I had like the sugar rush, and then I had like 1 or 2 restarts on elevator action, and then I had a fail on speedball, which typically isn't a level that you would ever really fail. I was already getting quite frustrated.
But that does happen to
With even at
everyone
this point.
in terms of dying on levels that you don't necessarily expect to be failing
Yeah,
sometimes.
no, indeed. We've had this chat during the last stream too with
Exactly.
I don't remember which level it was.
Yeah.
We do get a clean ICS Cento, and I believe River Vantage went really quite well as well. The start on River Vantage for me has actually become harder than landing the ending.
Okay.
But getting over the first wave at a acceptable pace can be a bit annoying for me because I tend to do this
Ooh.
wacky. Ooh.
You're really pushing it there.
Flirting.
That was very close.
Flirting with the edge.
Yeah.
Flirting with the edge. Alright, off kilter. This is one of those levels that I'm really, really bad at.
Yeah.
Like, it's really inconsistent for me, especially the start. Like, I know what to look for in the ending, but the start is one of those feeler things that I've just kind of got to.
I'm guessing you're going to abandon the skip
Yes.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm abandoning the skip indeed.
That good call. That's the wise decision in that situation.
I knew I didn't have to land this to improve on my PB time, so I wasn't too bothered as long as I got a somewhat clean ending there.
Yeah. So we're in the green. We're in the mid game. That was most of the interesting stuff in Chapter 3, at least until Coggers. So in the meantime, why don't you tell me a little bit more about what your goals are for the next little while in Marble It Up?
My goals for the next while, realistically, I don't have any goals. I more have ideals that I want to be able to pull off. So I've been working on Stay and Skip. It's been treating me surprisingly well.
Incredibly well.
Like,
you've learned it so quickly.
Yeah, but
and that's the analytical thing we were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing this on stream, right? I was learning it, and I was on stream, and I remember that Hiron had done a big time span of analyzing Stay In, looking at what works and what didn't, and he ended up posting his findings on Discord, and I was on stream, and I was struggling with the level, and I was like, man, this is going so bad. And so I was like, you know what? I remember Hiron did this, and I watched the video from Hiron. He had like a big explanation of what to look for in there. I analyzed the video frame by frame, seeing when does he jump, how long does he roll. And immediately after I did that, it just worked. So
it clicked.
I definitely want to be doing stay and skip and runs pretty soon. I also feel like something that I want to do, and I don't know what that is going to be yet, but I want to find something unique I want to do in runs that other people generally don't, which typically means it would be something risky. Also, this Coggers is insane.
That was such a strange angle.
If you go back just a little bit to the start of Coggers,
we can go back here, I think, without causing any issues. Oh no. No, it didn't.
Oh,
no, it didn't do this. No. All right, we're gonna have to refresh this. One moment, please.
Yeah, but like the idea there was that I had like a really scuffed Coggers, and I was thinking, okay, how do I save this? And then I thought back to like in a split moment of time, I thought to how Hatchet typically does Coggers, and I realized that from the things that I've seen from Hatchet, it honestly isn't a lot. His stream times sadly don't quite overlap with me being free. But I noticed that he typically has like an angle really far like away from the stage. And I thought like, hey, if I look that way, I'm going to get my spin correctly to keep going straight and not fall off the platform. But I really only thought about that because I often see Hatchet look like really far away from the stage. So I don't know if I would have landed if I hadn't thought about that, even though like realistically it's just kind of an intuition thing there.
Right.
But it was definitely interesting. Chat popped off at that moment. I remember that. I believe J2 was there. He was like, "Oh my god." Now this level is super uninteresting. This is one of those levels that I've almost come to see as an auto scroller because like.
Yep, there's lots of levels like that, but there's lots of things to talk about as well. Yeah, but you had a pretty good early game, and now you're into the mid game. You're 43 seconds ahead, which is good. What's your typical mindset at this point in a run? Not this run specifically, but
My typical mindset at this point would be I would still consider this like everything before stay and skip. I typically, well, not stay and skip, but staying alive. It's
yep,
like the typical midway point
right,
in terms of how long you've been running. And I typically see this point in the run as like, oh, I'm less than 15 minutes in. At this point, it's just go with the flow and see what happens. So I'm typically not very attached at this point yet,
yeah.
normally speaking.
You can't
Now
get
in this
invested in
run,
every run, right?
no, indeed. Like at this point, it's typically like I'm still thinking about a lot of things. I'm thinking about Diamond in the Sky. I'm thinking about Tangle. I'm thinking about Danger Zone, which it shouldn't be a hard level, but typically does strike some level of fear in me for some reason, even though I don't fail it a lot. Like
Right.
there's still a lot of skips that I'm thinking about at this point in the run that make me force myself to not get attached. It's like
Fair
the
enough.
idea I will try to not think about being too far ahead. I mean, because of my state of mind in this run, I was very much already attached at this point. At this point, I was already, and this was like a really bad mindset for this run, and that's why I'm so disappointed that this actually ended up being the run. But at this
It
point, I was
happens.
already thinking like, I'm going to PB.
Yep.
Not even that, I was already thinking I'm going to get sub 40 and I'm just going to instantly end the stream without saying anything. That
Uh,
was literally going through my mind at this point. I'm just like, I was pissed off and I had a points to prove and I was like, I'm going to do it here and just, literally like get sub 40, walks away, refuses to explain, that kind of thing.
yeah.
I ended up doing that, but I ended up like regretting it like minutes after, and I was like, like
It
typing in my chat like, I'm really sorry about it. I'm super frustrated, like
it was entertaining, but you know what? This isn't
yeah,
the first time you've proven yourself either. I mean, what I think of when I think of you proving yourself is Super Bowl 2022, which was almost a year ago now, and you did
yeah,
incredibly
indeed.
well in the open division.
I don't remember what time I got, but I do remember that I was top two. I think was I ahead of Andy or not? I don't remember.
I am actually not entirely sure now that I think about it, but you
'Cause,
you and Andy were the ones to move on to
yeah, I do know Andy got like
the
a
invitational
sick
round.
time after that.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, you've
yeah,
been around long enough to be a part of. Oh my gosh, what are you? You're not going to
Jesus.
survive that. You just totally
Yes.
went right into the goal. That was
Yeah,
hilarious. That was amazing.
yeah. That was one of those like instinct saves where I feel like I'm pretty decent at using super speed to save myself if
Right?
I have them. It's kind of like I feel like I understand them well enough to want to hang on to them for those
Yep.
kinds of situations.
And you've got to improvise
Oh,
sometimes, right?
I do know here on Gearhard I can save an earlier cycle, which I didn't know before. I saw someone, I think it might have been you, do on stream that if I like a slightly earlier cycle between the third and fourth jump,
Okay.
which is possible by going down on the right side instead of the left side, I can save like a few seconds here. So
Yeah.
that's something I'm definitely gonna remember for
Bit of a wait there at the
future
end, but you
streams.
still ended up saving 9 seconds, so that's great.
Yeah, my PV failed, I think the ice gems, so I had to restart
Ugh.
there.
Yeah. Always that one's always a pain.
It's one of those things that's just kind of like mostly instinct. There's like a bit of a setup for it, but
Right.
nothing that makes me feel entirely confident. This beam right here is how I practiced staying, by the way.
It's a
The
sharper
beam
curve, but
right
it's the
there.
same idea.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
No, I don't remember how this level went.
I'm really enjoying this run so far, and again, having not seen it before, that little things like that retrograde rally finish really surprised me.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that finish, to be fair, but it's cool seeing it back and being like, oh my god, I just saved that.
That was a really smooth Dire Straits actually up to this point.
I was feeling a bit risky here. Normally I wouldn't have gone down.
Okay,
I would have waited for the basher to pass.
right.
But again, I wanted to save as much time as possible to get to the sub 40, especially being is well on pace
Yeah.
at the end of chapter 4 at this point.
Jump the gun on your feathered fall there, the first attempt on Ex
Yeah.
Machina. That's that one doesn't feel good.
No, but I mean it's such a short level and it's so early on that you need to use it that I feel like fine. Like what did that lose? Like 4 or 5 seconds maybe, so it's fine.
Yeah, you're so far ahead. You've got the wiggle room. It's like
Um,
5.5 seconds. Yeah.
this is one of the levels that I'm always afraid of going into the run, and I don't remember how it went.
Oh, okay, that was actually really
Okay,
close.
no,
You were
no,
just right on the seam there.
yeah,
It could have gone either way.
but it's a decent enough save. It seems like.
Yeah, as long as you didn't die, and you're not losing a whole lot of time here or anything like that.
I still believe it loses like 10 seconds because normally you would end this at like 40 seconds. And I think now I'm gonna end almost 50, if not actually 50 seconds. So it's still 10 seconds,
Sure.
11 seconds even gone.
Yep. So yeah, we're getting into chapter 5 now. But I want to get back to a little bit more about you and Space Kitty, just because that's a kind of a little bit of a power duo in the Marble Love community. You guys have been rivals for a long time.
Yeah,
She got sub 40, what, like only a couple weeks or even days before you got yours?
yeah, I don't remember how long it was. I think like maybe a week or two before.
But did that like
Um,
challenge you to do it?
I mean, I was certainly motivated, yeah, because at that point, like, I knew she was going to get it at some point. Like, there was no doubt in my mind that she would. She's persistent.
Right?
But at that point, I had just had like a few very busy but very humbling months at work. It's been great. I've done a lot of cool stuff. But at that point, I hadn't been, playing the game for quite a while, so I felt quite rusty. And then I saw her get the sub 40, and I just felt like, okay, this is the time. I'm no longer as busy with work. I'm good.
Right?
And I started going for it. I started streaming a lot more than I usually would. I even took a few times where I was at work. I'm like, yo, can I go home a bit earlier? And then I would start streaming and stuff like that. It's like we can do that, assuming that we're nicely on schedule.
Right.
So I was getting really into it, and I was really feeling motivated. Ideally I wanted to beat Kitty's time, obviously. That's kind of always been the goal.
You
But I'm
still
happy I got
could.
the sub 40. And at this point, I am no longer, because at this point, I was always doing the same things Kitty did. I was trying to limit myself in what I learned to make it an even playing field in terms of strats and focus entirely on consistency.
Right.
And so that's what I always went for. But now that I've got the sub 40, she's got the sub 40, I'm going to go completely unhinged. I'm going to learn whatever I can. I'm going to focus on anything that I can see that saves time that I feel would be reasonable for me to do, and I'm just gonna see how far I can take it now.
And Stay and Skip is a bit
Um,
of an extreme example of that.
Stain is a very extreme example of that, but honestly, I would not have been even thinking about doing this in runs if I didn't have Hiron's explanation, because before I saw that, it was so hard
Right.
and so inconsistent, and it still kind of is, especially with the final part at the blue ramp that we just went by. It's still a bit finicky. But
I
overall, it's consistent enough that I landed it like 3 times in a row in doing chapter 5 runs.
Probably still not
So
ready to do it, but seeing how quickly you've picked it up using those resources definitely makes me think about it.
it's one of those things, like, it's one of the big, idolized skips in the game. I feel
Yep.
like that everyone's like, damn, it's stay and skip. And it's one of those things that I was just like so afraid of trying until I actually did it, and I got the hang of it with Firen's explanation. I was like, you know what, this is actually fine. The idea, though, is that doing this when I'm under, like, imagine if I were to reach staying alive at minus 44 seconds, like here. I don't think I would have the balls to do it. I think I would be terrified of trying. And that's the thing, because I've only really been doing it in chapter 5 specific runs and
Yep.
in IL and in the practice level. And when doing it in a full game, angering
completely
green by like a
different.
decent margin, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So we will see how that ends up going, but I definitely want to do it, and I've been thinking about other things that normal people wouldn't do that I may want to incorporate just to get a little bit of unique spice in my runs, you know? Like I've been thinking about the uphill both ways rock hit that I believe Kitty's been doing every so often when she feels like it. And I've also been thinking about just doing the normal IL up the wall, seeing as it's so early in the run. So I just want to have like a few things to spice things up in my runs, and we'll see where it goes. Let's see which things end up working consistently enough
Right.
to do it.
Speaking of things that work consistently, you got a pretty good crystalline matrix going on there.
That is a pretty. I know you really don't like that level.
But you
I feel
get
like Crystalline Matrix is all about the stored setup.
yes, it definitely can be. And contraption, I know contraption skip is not something you're interested in trying.
I've been
I
interested in trying. It's just been extremely difficult for me to grasp. Like the turn at the
yeah,
end is so weird to me. It does not make sense to me at all how to do that. So
but
it's like a weird
yeah,
camera movement thing.
it's funny how people like have different perspectives on how difficult levels are compared to each other. Where like most players would go for contraption before they learn stand skip, but then like one of them works for you and the other one doesn't. I mean, I can't really speak to either of them because I can't do either of them consistently at all. But it is cool to see different people's perspectives on which tricks are harder than other tricks, and there's no consensus on a lot of them.
I mean, I feel like for the most part, people agree on a lot of things. However, it all depends on how you work as a person. Some people excel in certain things, other people excel in different things, and it just so happens that with Hiron's explanation, Stayin has a rigid setup that makes sense to me, whereas contraption is just like you have to understand the big turnarounds
Yeah,
on a level that for me just conceptually doesn't work yet. I've been trying it a lot. I've been spending a lot of time on that here and there, but so far there's nothing that I can do that feels like it makes me at it. And that's
right.
really what I tend to be looking for.
Uh, we've got Vertigo coming up next. But besides this, let's step a little bit outside of the Marble cinematic universe for a moment. And oh, you got that checkpoint. That's cool.
It was a hmm.
That was a weird checkpoint.
I was just
Anyways,
barely scraping it.
like I was saying, yeah, let's step aside for a moment, and I want to hear a little bit more about what you're working on, what you're doing outside of speedrunning, outside of gaming in general. Like, what else are you up to? What do we need to know about Whiskey
What
Manager?
else? What else am I up to? I do a lot of things. I've been again thanks to Kitty, I've been getting into chess. So
Chess.
I've been rounding up some colleagues who are into chess. I'm really bad at chess, like surprisingly really bad. But I think it's quite fun. I think it's a good pastime. I've been getting into reading books a bit more, because that's something that I used to do. I
Okay.
was like 13, 14 years old. I read a lot of fantasy books. I kind of dropped that for a long time because I had like other ambitions in life, and I didn't really find time between like ambitions and life goals and playing video games, which is one of the big things about me that I just love doing.
Yep.
So there's that, and then obviously there's my job, which I love doing. You know, it's been a passion of me for a long time. And between all those things, between gaming, reading, you know, going out with colleagues and playing chess and whatever the hell, there is not a lot of time remaining for anything else.
Yep.
So I would say
Fair
those
enough.
are like the big things, but it's also a thing that I spend an absurd amount of time with my career as my hobby outside of work as well.
Okay.
So People would think I'm crazy, but it's something that also tends to take up hours of my days when there's not a new Pokemon game coming out. But yeah, that's really what I tend to do in my free time.
Uh, since you brought it up, you have been enjoying Pokemon Scarlet and Violet quite a lot. I've been hoping to play that myself sometime soon as well.
I have been enjoying it a great deal. I'm reading a lot of critics about it, but it seems like a lot of people are the complaints that a lot of people seem to have is performance wise, which is
Yep.
like frame drops, which honestly is not a game issue, that's a console issue. But disregarding the frame drops, the actual gameplay itself
I've
is
seen some good stuff.
phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Yep.
It's like this is the dream Pokemon game for me. Like when I think back to how I wanted Pokemon to be when I was 5, 6 years old, this is it. Open world, you can go far and wide. Okay, there's no level scaling, which is kind of a big downside.
Questionable. Yep.
But all in all, the way this game is for me is the most fun I've ever had with Pokemon. So
Cool.
I've been spending a ridiculous amount of time on that.
Nice. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Checking out your Platinum Playground start here. Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I sadly do not quite have the faster start under control here yet. I've tried it a bit. I think I might have done it IL, but a bit inconsistent for me to go for
Yeah, I've been working on a new
in
setup for that
RTS.
myself, and it's starting to work pretty well for me, but it took a while.
And then there's the wall gems. I do want to find like a consistent setup to do the wall gems faster because this does take a lot of airtime.
Yep.
Like
But you know what? It's not
it's
that
a
bad.
lot of time lost.
It's not all that much in the grand scheme of things, but I can definitely relate to it feels slow. It feels slow for sure.
I
Uh,
definitely feel like it loses a few seconds just in airtime and dropping back down and then bouncing instead of just getting a clean arch around. So it's something that I should definitely work on.
yep. So have you been getting into like any live races of this recently, or are you planning to coming for the Super Bowl season?
I've done races bits ago. I don't quite remember how long ago. I did a few races.
Mm-hmm.
I invited people to come racing with me. This was before the Super Bowl announcements.
Right.
I did a few races with J2, with Squadra. Um, I want to do more of them. Again, as soon as I'm like done with my Pokemon addiction, I'm definitely gonna go back into the Discord. Ask people to do races and stuff like that.
Yep.
Because it's definitely the most enjoyable way for me to play the game because it's more about the community than it is about getting a PV. When I'm just streaming, play the game, and talking to chat, there is still the idea that I'm going live playing this game with the idea or expectation that I'm going to perform. Scuffed radius.
I saw
Scuffed
that coming.
radius. Yeah, radius.
But yeah,
Sometimes it's super clean. Sometimes it's really not.
but yeah, the atmosphere of
Yeah.
races is totally different. Usually,
It's
uh,
just a lot more fun.
it is. It is definitely more fun than doing PB attempts.
There's also the added factor that you can't reset no matter how much you want to. So it also helps you deal with like coping with
Oh,
bad runs.
you can reset. You just can't restart the timer.
Yeah, I mean,
You can go back to the
there is
beginning
no
and redo everything if you want
no
to.
there is no benefit in that though. Like if I'm
Yeah.
gonna do a race time.gd and I'm gonna end the game in like an hour and 10 minutes.
Uh,
I would lose so many points. No, it's just more enjoyable. It helps, cope with bad runs when the run's really bad, and it's just more fun. It's more relaxing. It's more relaxing when you're racing. Yeah.
definitely.
I also tend to go into races with the idea that the people I'm racing with are like significantly more practiced than me, and
You're
so
probably
I
right. You don't have a whole
don't
lot of
expect
hours in the
much.
game relative to the rest of the people in your time your PB time frame?
I can actually check how many. I think it's less than 200 hours that I have in the game.
Honestly, that's pretty
Also,
crazy.
there's Centripetal Force. This is a level that I find quite important to check out. Yep, there's the fail.
Yeah, this was maybe before C Murder published his, or maybe around the same time. But you're still using the older route that
I
the rest of
I
us were
haven't
using until
even
recently.
I haven't even properly been looking at Sea Murder's new routes. Like I've seen you, for example, do it in your
Yeah,
runs,
it,
but
it
I haven't
it's
taken the
fairly
time to
simple.
analyze it.
I think it definitely. I do think it's easier, but more importantly, it takes a lot less time to learn than the other one.
So about my time in the game, I am now at 150.2 hours.
Okay, so you're like, I mean, relatively speaking, you're kind of a intermediate player. In some people would call you an advanced player. Sure, that's fine, but you're not really a novice, and you're certainly not a beginner. But you're also you haven't been around, you haven't played for thousands of hours like other players in the under 40-minute time range have.
No, I mean I would say that the amount of hours you've played is not quite relevant as to what time you have. People learn at different speeds, and
Sure.
at some point the learning process is going to like slow down drastically.
Yep.
And I don't know when that time's gonna be for me. I mean, like it took me a long time between 48 minutes and
I like this
my
setup.
time now, the 40. So it actually took me a ridiculously long time in between these things, but it's also been time that was very sporadic with my availability to play the game.
Right.
I would say that the amount of hours you play shouldn't be relevant to how good you are as a player. Like if someone popped into the game and had like 50 hours of playtime and they just understand the game
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally well, that they can get like sub 38 or something within like 50 hours of playing. Imagine. And would they be considered a novice or beginner or advanced intermediate depending on their time played? I would say not.
Yeah, this is
I
this is
would.
why I'm saying relatively. But all I'm really saying is that for the amount of experience that you have, you've been very successful with the full game RTA category.
I would especially consider it so, considering that I've seen these, like I've been there for the entire thing, seeing her go from start to finish, and I will absolutely not deny that I've done it considerably faster than her. But it feels like talking about that, it just feels like it's like, oh, I'm learning this faster, which
It's not
feels
something
a
that
bit,
it's not something to brag about. It's not something that you're bragging about or anything like that. It's really just an observation that you have picked up on the game really quickly. And I know when I had 150 hours, I was I think my personal best was about an hour for this game. So
I
yeah,
mean, I also
that's
think
how it is. It's not
I
it's
also
not
think
bragging
it's
or anything.
just related to how I approach the game, because again, when I play this game, I do think about the fact that I am limited in the amount of time that I can play. So I try
Mm-hmm.
to spend the time that I do spend in the game as effectively as possible. And what people will often not see is the offline time that isn't spent in the actual game, but looking at other people's speedruns,
Yep.
analyzing the things that they do. And a lot of my learning process comes not from the doing, but from the analyzing something. Again, very methodical way
Sure.
of thinking. So a lot of my practice is actually just not even spent inside of the game, inside of speedrun.com replays.
That makes sense.
So I would say that the 150 hours is kind of a fake show of the time spent to get where I am now.
Okay. Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
But also almost at the end here already. I do not remember how Tangle and Stratosphere went, but looking at the time, I do believe that these should be 2 clean, straightforward first tries.
Yeah, pretty good. I know you've been talking about learning more kind of gung ho, if that's not the word to use, but more strategies that are a little bit riskier and to save some time. Does that include the end game? I know, things like Tangle and Stratosphere skips have been something you've hesitated to work on in the past.
When it comes to the end game, I feel like it's going to depend on the levels. I'm certainly going to try and find time save um, wherever I can and just work things out and see which things work for me and which things don't. Tangle is one of those things that I'm extremely scared of because it's a tightrope, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm very finicky on them. The
Right.
the way that like I'm moving on my keyboard when I'm ahead of pace, when I'm on these tightropes, when I'm like really hard in green, especially in the late game, I get very nervous and my hands get twitchy and I'm like a lot less confident with the movement that I'm doing. And having that issue on a tightrope in the end game is very dangerous. So it might
Right.
be that Tangle is like that one of those levels that I'm just going to hold off for now because of like the nature of the level and how far it
Yeah.
is. But for example, Gravity Skip is something that I've been looking into for a while now, trying to find a way to make that work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely want to find faster ways to do just the other levels in Chapter 6. I'm not sure how much difference I can find in routes
Right.
used in Chapter 6. I can certainly start looking for optimizations in levels,
Yeah.
these little tweaks that people do that you need to focus to really notice that they're doing it.
Yeah, and I mean it's a complex question, right? Is it better to start learning something now because it's going to take you a long time before you're good at it, or is it better to hold off because you can get better results now if you're not losing runs to it? Like, so I get the dilemma there, for sure.
I feel like, especially when it comes to Tangle, if I end up learning it anytime soon, it would be very dependent on how I feel at the moment of reaching Tangle, whether or not I would do it. If I'm like feeling the twitchiness in my fingers and like like sometimes my hands are just trembling because I'm like here my hands are absolutely trembling at the end of the run because I was so nervous.
You're so
And if
nervous.
I have
Yeah,
that, if I have that, I can't do a tightrope like that. But if I
I
don't
get.
have that, if I'm feeling safe enough to do it, then I might end up learning it and doing it and seeing how it goes. But I also know that I would absolutely hate myself if I tried fast angle on pace and I then failed and lost like a big PB or something to it because I was like, oh yeah, sure, I can do this. So just due to how late it is and what kind of level it is, it's a bit of a difficult one to grasp on what I should be doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of nerves and how you were feeling at this time, how did you feel after you landed it?
And that is a
I mean, in
good question.
addition to
Obviously, I
all
was
the things
happy.
you were feeling during the run, but what, was there a sense of relief? Was there
Obviously,
excitement?
obviously,
Was
I
there,
was very happy. To be sure, I was
yeah,
extremely happy that like the sub 40, like that arbitrary number.
sure,
It really is just that. It really is just an arbitrary number. But the fact that that has been passed, I was very disappointed as well because I looked at my time and I knew that it wasn't faster than Kitty. So I knew that was still something that I was going to have to go for and I was going to have to do this again at some point. That
which
was
isn't entirely a
overall,
bad thing.
I was
I'm
happy
glad
that
you're going to keep going.
40 was gone. But I'm happy I got this because I was like, oh, okay, well, I have the sub 40 and what am I gonna do now? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna look for harder strats that I can learn, and I got to stay in skip, but I'm gonna look at like a bunch of things. I'm gonna look at the faster flip the table as well that I've seen you and Overzoo.
Hmm.
So getting this has been like the segue for me into being confident enough to go for the harder things, and it's still a very freeing feeling to get this thing that you've been working towards
Right.
for a while and just realize like, okay, I have got this goal. I can focus on other things now. I think
Awesome.
that's really been the big thing that was like, okay, I don't have to worry about this sub 40 anymore.
Nice.
So that's, I feel, where I stood with this. It was a bit of both happiness, a bit of disappointment because I wanted it to be faster, but
Sure.
realistically speaking, it wasn't gonna happen, but it could have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad you're happy with what you have so far, and you're going to keep going. I'm certainly happy that you got this run, and you know, I'm most of all happy that you were able to join me here on Speedrunner Showcase. It was a lot of
It's
fun.
been
It's been a long
it's
time
been
coming.
an honor to be here. Yeah, it's been an honor to be here. Honestly, like when I started this game, did I think I was gonna get to a point where it's like, a run that is good enough to get interviewed, that's kind of like the feeling that I had. So it's
The
it's
run
been
is
impressive.
good,
It's
but
been impressive.
the run is good, but it's just an excuse
But it can
because
be fast. It can be faster.
I wanted to talk to you anyways. You know, I've been looking forward to having you on the show since long before you were actually even ready to be here. And that, you know, it just goes to show that you've got a great streaming personality, and you know, you're an important part of the community. And you know, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and pleasure now to have you on the show.
It's been a pleasure to be here, and I suppose I'll see you again when I get the sub 35.
Absolutely, we'll get you on
We'll
again
see.
once you get down into the sub 29 range in a few weeks. Then
Sub
no,
29.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
No,
let me
this
just
won't be the last we
quickly.
see of you, and we'll definitely, if you haven't been
Yeah.
following WhiskyMancer on Twitch, make sure you do so. We'll have that in the description on YouTube and everything like that. And you know what? Thanks everyone for joining us on Speedrunner Showcase. Anything else you'd like to say, WhiskyMancer?
I would. The only thing I would say is, if you're here, if you're watching this, and you're ever thinking about speedrunning a game, whether it be this game or any other game, and you're uncertain about it, just go for it.
Go
Just
for it.
do it. You never know where it leads. I didn't know where it led when I started this game. I thought it was just gonna be like a small pastime thing that would do like once or twice and then be done with it. But it's actually become a big thing for me. I've met a lot of amazing people. I've gotten a lot of things that I could be proud of, and I feel like if you're interested in speedrunning any game, go for it. Do it. That's what I would say.
Go for it. Awesome. And that's all. It's good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us on Speedrunner Showcase.